You are Mongol, and you weren't born in a hospital. You were born in a felt tent during a winter that killed half your cousins before spring. Your mother wrapped you in sheep's wool and hoped you'd make it to morning. Most didn't. This wasn't unusual. This was the steppe, just another winter. Oh, and by the way, a steppe is a flat grassy plain in places like Serbia and Russia with little to no trees. So where were we? You are a Mongol, and you never stayed in one place long enough to call it home. The grass runs out. You move. Winter comes. You move to sheltered valleys. Spring arrives. You move to fresh pastures. Your entire life fits on a cart pulled by oxen. No walls to protect you. No stored grain to fall back on. No neighbors you can run to for help because your neighbors are 50 miles away and probably planning to raid you anyway. That's just how it was. That's just being Mongol. Fighting wasn't something you learned later. Fighting was how you ate. By age 3, you're on a horse because if you can't ride, you can't help herd the animals. If you can't herd, your family doesn't eat. Normal Mongol childhood. By age 5, your uncle straps you to a horse and makes you shoot at targets while moving. Your fingers bleed. You do it again. Because if you can't shoot, you can't hunt. If you can't hunt, you starve. And if you can't defend your herd from the neighbor tribe's raid, they take your animals and you starve. Every day was a fight. Fighting for food. Fighting against neighbors who wanted what you had. Fighting to keep your animals alive. Fighting against winters so harsh that just breathing felt like swallowing knives. Just a typical life on the Mongol lands. Winter on the steppe hit -40 Fahrenheit. Your shelter was felt and animal fat. No walls, no fireplace, no village you can retreat to. You either survived or you died. If you were weak, you died. If you were stupid, you died. If you made one mistake, you died. Everyone knew this. The Mongols didn't have room for second chances. By age 10, you're hunting wolves, not for sport, because wolves kill your sheep, and if your sheep die, you die. You learn to track in snow, to read weather patterns, to survive 3 days without food when a storm traps you 50 miles from camp. Standard Mongol stuff. But most importantly, you learn that hesitation kills you. That the boy from the neighboring tribe isn't your friend. He's competition for grazing land. And his father killed your uncle 2 summers ago in a raid, and your father killed his grandfather before that. Blood feuds last generations because there's not enough of anything to go around. That's just how things worked out here. So if you survive enough, you perfect the skills to live on the brutal lands of steppe. Hunting taught you tactical coordination. When to move, when to wait, how to work with others to surround prey. Herding taught you how to manage moving formations of animals, dozens of them, keeping them together while riding, anticipating where they'll go, cutting off escape routes. By adolescence, you can shoot a bow from horseback at full gallop and hit a target 350 yards away. Not because you're special, because if you couldn't, you'd have starved years ago or gotten shot by some other tribe's kid who could. You don't even realize these are military skills. You think you're just trying to not starve, just living a typical Mongol day. By age 20, you can ride 100 miles in a day and fight at the end of it. You can survive for months on mare's milk and dried meat that you carry with you as you move from pasture to pasture. You've already killed men, rival tribesmen who tried to steal your horses, maybe someone from a blood feud, maybe just someone who was in the wrong place when resources got scarce. You don't think of yourself as a soldier. You're just someone who survived, like everyone else who made it this far. All of this, the constant moving, the daily fights, the wolves, the raids, the blood feuds, the winters that killed the weak, the skills you had to learn or die, it all added up to something. You didn't plan it. Nobody designed it. But the steppe had created a filter, a brutal one. Only the people who could ride, shoot, fight, survive, and keep doing it every single day made it to adulthood. And those people? They were cavalry. Expert cavalry. From birth. Without even trying to be. This was the perfect military culture. Not because someone sat down and designed a training program, but because life itself was the training program. Every single day, for your entire life, You weren't a civilian who got trained to fight. You were someone who fought to stay a civilian. The line between survival and warfare didn't exist because they were the same thing. Meanwhile, somewhere in Song, China, a farmer's kid is learning to plant rice. His biggest worry is whether it rains enough this season. He's got a roof over his head, walls. His family has been farming the same plot of land for 6 generations. The land is registered, protected by law. By age 10, he might be learning to read, maybe going to school. His life is hard by his standards. Long hours, taxes, worries about floods and droughts. But he's not wondering if he'll be alive next winter. He's not fighting off raiders. He's not tracking wolves through a blizzard because his family's survival depends on it. The only time he rode a horse, when he got conscripted at 20, he's handed a spear and given 3 months of training. Most conscripts have never even been on a horse before. They're told to form up, follow orders, hope the guy next to them knows what he's doing. That's life if you aren't a Mongol. No, but here's the thing. I keep saying you and Mongol, but Mongols didn't exist yet. You're Taichiud, or Kerate, or Merkits, or Naiman, or one of dozens of other tribes scattered across the steppe. You've got more in common with that Chinese farmer which lives thousands of miles away than with the tribe 50 miles east. Because that tribe, they're the enemy. All this strength, all this training, all these skills that could make you unstoppable, completely wasted, fighting each other over horses and grazing rights and pride and revenge. Look at the math. Maybe 1 million nomads total across the steppe, divided into dozens of tribes, each one fighting the others. No cities, no writing, no unified anything. Just endless cycles of raids and revenge. Your loyalty is to your family, your clan, maybe your tribe if you're feeling generous. That's it. Someone from another tribe isn't your ally. They're competition. Always have been. But at 1206, someone figured out how to stop that. His name was Temujin. You may know him as Genghis Khan, and what he did wasn't just conquer the other tribes. I mean, plenty of people had tried that before. What he did was break the system that kept everyone fighting each other. First thing, he broke up the tribes and created a decimal set of units. Your unit of 10 isn't your cousins anymore. It's men from different clans, different tribes, people your father might have fought against 5 years ago. You're in a unit with former enemies and you don't get a choice about it. And to make sure everyone plays along, if one man in your unit of 10 runs from battle, all 10 get executed. So you watch each other's backs. Not because you like each other, because if your unit mate dies, you might die too. Units of 10 combined into units of 100. Units of 100 into units of 1,000. Units of 1,000 into units of 10,000. Clean, simple. Everyone knows exactly where they fit. Your commander knows he's got exactly 100 men. His commander knows he's got exactly 1,000. No confusion, no tribal politics about who's in charge. Just clear structure. Second thing, promotion based on merit, not birth. Doesn't matter if your father was a chief or a nobody. Doesn't matter what tribe you came from. You win battles, you get promoted, you're good at your job, you move up. That's it. This sounds obvious, but it was revolutionary for that time. Before this, your status was determined by your bloodline, your family, your tribe. Genghis said no. Ability matters, results matter. A herder could become a general if he was good enough, and plenty did. Third thing, the Yasa, a legal code that applied to everyone, including nobles, including Genghis Khan's own family. Nobody was above it. Theft from another Mongol? Severe punishment, cowardice in battle, execution, loyalty to the Khan above all else? Required? Religious tolerance? Mandated. You could be Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, shamanist, didn't matter. Just follow the law and fight when ordered. The loot system changed, too. It wasn't every man for himself anymore. Loot got distributed systematically. Your share depended on your rank and your performance. This solved a problem that had destroyed plenty of steppe armies before. Soldiers would win a battle, immediately start looting, and someone would ambush them while they were distracted. Now, you wait. You get your share. It's guaranteed. So you stay disciplined. Here's what this did. Your loyalty used to be to your family, your clan, your tribe. That's where you came from. That's who you were. Genghis Khan made that loyalty illegal. Not explicitly, but by breaking up the tribal units, by mixing everyone together, by making your survival depend on your unit, by making your status depend on your performance, not your bloodline. He shifted where your loyalty went. Now your loyalty was to your unit, to your commander, to the Khan, to the system itself. You couldn't retreat to your people anymore, because your unit was your people now. And they weren't from your tribe. The tribal identity that had kept nomads divided for centuries, Genghis destroyed it. Not by killing the tribes, by making the tribal identity less important than your identity as a Mongol, as part of this new thing. Before 1206, if someone asked who you were, you'd say your tribe name. After 1206, you said Mongol. That word didn't mean anything before Genghis Khan. It was just one tribe among many. He took that word and made it mean everyone, the whole system. This was the innovation. Not tactics, not weapons, not even the cavalry skills everyone already had. The innovation was organizational. He created a structure that transcended blood loyalty, a corporate entity, basically, where your position, your status, your survival, your wealth, everything depended on the organization, not on your family connections. You couldn't quit and go back to your tribe. Your tribe didn't exist anymore, not the way it used to. You are Mongol now. That was it, and this solved the fundamental problem. Nomads had always been militarily dangerous. Genghis Khan didn't make them better fighters. He made them fight together. He turned warriors into an army, raiders into a conquering force, individual skill into systematic power. He created a machine which is gonna devour everything in its path, and one day it is gonna devour itself. So what does this machine look like when it starts moving? 1206, maybe 1 million people total, living in felt tents on the steppe. But here's what made them terrifying. It wasn't just that they conquered fast. It's how they did it. Here's how usual war worked back then. You pick a target, you march your army there, you lay siege to their cities for months or years, you eventually break through or starve them out, you take some territory, you go home for winter. Rinse and repeat. A campaign against one kingdom could take decades. The Crusades? Over a century of back and forth. The 100 Years' War between England and France? The name says it all. Medieval warfare was extremely slow, expensive, and exhausting. The Mongols looked at that whole system and said no. They will not play this slow-pace game. They flipped the entire war game. First of all, they knew everything before they even showed up. 1207, the Mongols attack Western Xia, a kingdom in what's now northwestern China and parts of Tibet. This place was roughly the size of France, controlled crucial Silk Road trade routes, had fortified cities with massive walls, and a standing army that had been defending this territory since 1038. A normal medieval power would spend years just trying to take one of their cities. The Mongols? 3 years and Western Xia surrenders becomes a vassal state. But here's the genius part. The Mongols don't just take the territory and leave. They take the maps, the intel, the trade routes, the knowledge of every road and fortress in the region. Western Xia becomes their database. Next target, the Jin dynasty in northern China. Now we're talking about a real empire. The Jin-controlled territory roughly the size of France and Germany combined, including modern-day Beijing and everything north of the Yellow River. They ruled over millions of people, had massive armies, sophisticated siege technology, and walls everywhere. This should take forever. War started in 1211. By 1215, Beijing fell. 4 years to crack one of the most fortified regions in the world. But again, the Mongols don't just take territory, they take engineers, Chinese siege experts who've spent their entire lives figuring out how to crack fortified cities. These guys know mathematics, counterweights, trajectories, everything. And the Mongols don't kill them. They hire them. Now the Mongol army has the best siege engineers in the world. They like playing video games and collecting S-class weapons after each battle. Then in 1216, they moved on the Kara Kitai in Central Asia, covering what's now parts of Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, and Western China. About the size of Western Europe. This was a major power that controlled the Silk Road, had defeated other empires, and ruled over diverse populations. Guess what? The entire region. Gone in 2 years. By 1218, it's over. It's the sheer speed in which they moved made them act of nature. Think about that. 6 years from northwest China to Central Asia. Most armies would still be planning the first campaign. The Mongols conquered 3 major empires in the time it would normally take to besiege one city. And they did it by treating conquest like a learning process. Every kingdom they took gave them new tools, new knowledge, new specialists. Western Xia gave them maps. Jin gave them siege engineers. Kara-Kitai gave them control of Central Asian trade networks. And here's the logistics of how they moved so fast. Each Mongol soldier had 3 to 4 horses. Some had up to 16. At this time, usually soldiers had only 1. Unlike other armies, as a Mongol, you are not ride one exhausted horse into battle. You're switching between fresh ones all day. One gets tired? Switch. Keep riding. A European army with supply wagons makes 15 miles a day, maybe. The Mongols? 60 to 100 miles per day. And they could do that for weeks. You can't catch them. You can't outrun them. By the time you hear they're coming, they're already there. Then there's the communication system. They built the Yam. It's a relay station every 20 to 30 miles across the entire empire. Fresh horses waiting, food, shelter. A messenger arrives, hands off the message to the next guy who's already mounted and gone. Messages traveling 200 to 300 kilometers per day. In the 1200s. For comparison, a letter in medieval Europe takes weeks, months maybe. The Mongols get orders from Mongolia reaching Persia in days. This meant their generals could coordinate attacks across thousands of miles. One army hits you from the east, another from the west, a third circles behind, and they all know exactly where the others are because the Yam keeps everyone updated in real time. And the Mongols loved merchants, protected them, encouraged them. The Silk Road, which had been dangerous for centuries, suddenly became safer than it had ever been. Caravans moving silk, silver, musk, jade, spices from China through Central Asia toward Persia and beyond. Genghis Khan didn't just want to conquer, he wanted to profit. So merchants got protection, safe passage, and legal guarantees. A special passport called a paisa that basically said, this person is under Mongol protection. Touch them and you die. By 1218, the Mongol Empire is a well-oiled machine. Conquering, yes, but also trading, building roads, relay stations, creating what would eventually become the most connected trade network in human history. The rest of the world has no idea what's coming. The Middle East thinks they're just another group of steppe raiders who'll go away eventually. Europe doesn't even know the Mongols exist yet. For context, the first Mongol contact with Europe was in 1223 at the Battle of Kalka River in modern-day Ukraine, southern Russia, when generals Jaby and Subutai raided the region after finishing the Khwarezm campaign. That's 5 years after 1218. Yep, Europe will be mostly unaware of this brutal war machine of Mongols, even around the Khwarezm campaign. What? Oh, you ask what's a Khwarezm? Oh boy, you are in a ride. So the Khwarezm Empire, covering modern-day Iran, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, and parts of Afghanistan and Iraq, roughly the size of Western Europe. Shah Muhammad II rules it, and he's feeling pretty good about himself. He's got 400,000 soldiers, the largest army in Central Asia. He controls the major Silk Road cities, Samarkand, Bukhara, Merv, all fortified with massive walls and garrisons. He's conquered territories, defeated rivals, and he's starting to think he's untouchable. He's even picking fights with the Abbasid Caliph in Baghdad, the most powerful religious figure in the Islamic world. That's how confident he is. And here's what Shah Muhammad doesn't understand about his new neighbors. Those Mongol merchants traveling the Silk Road, selling silk and silver and setting up trade relationships. They're not just merchants. Remember what the Mongols learned from each conquest? Western Xia gave them maps and intel. Jin Dynasty gave them siege engineers. Kara Kitai gave them control of trade routes. Well, they learned something else too. They learned that merchants go everywhere, talk to everyone, and nobody suspects them. Every trade caravan that rolled into a city was gathering information. Which gates are weakest? How many soldiers in the garrison? Where's the food stored? What's the morale like? Are the people loyal to their ruler or just scared? Which local nobles have grudges? What are the road conditions? How far between cities? The Mongol merchant network wasn't just making money, it was building the most sophisticated intelligence network in the medieval world. By the time a Mongol army showed up, they already knew more about your empire than you did. So after you get that context, you see around in 1218 caravan of 450 Mongol merchants shows up at Otrar, a border city in the Khwarezm Empire. They've got silk, silver, musk, and valuable stuff. Standard trade mission. The governor, a guy named Inalchuk, looks at them and decides they're spies, which, to be fair, some of them probably were. The Mongols had this habit of sending merchants ahead to scope out cities before conquering them. But here's the thing. Even if they were spies, you're supposed to just send them back. That's how this works. You don't execute 450 people and keep their stuff. Inalchuk executed 450 people and kept their stuff. Genghis Khan gets the news and does something that, for him, is actually pretty restrained. He sends 3 diplomats with a letter. The letter basically says, "Hey, one of your governors just killed my people. I'm assuming you didn't order this. Hand him over and we're good." Shah Muhammad II, ruler of the Khwarezm Empire, receives these diplomats. He could have just blamed Inalchuk, handed him over, avoided what comes next. Instead, he kills one diplomat, shaves the beards off the other 2, and sends them back. Now, shaving a Mongol's beard is not a minor insult. That's a we're going to war over this level of disrespect. And killing diplomats? That's breaking basically the only international rule everyone agreed on at the time. So Genghis Khan shows up with somewhere between 100,000 and 200,000 troops. Historians argue about the exact number, but honestly, it doesn't matter. What matters is what happens next. The Khwarezm Empire at this point controls territory the size of Western Europe. They've got Samarkand, Bukhara, Merv, major cities with walls, armies, everything. Shah Muhammad has maybe 400,000 soldiers total. On paper, this should be a defensive war he can win. You've got walled cities, you know the terrain, you've got more men. Just garrison your cities, make the Mongols bleed taking each one, wait for winter. Standard playbook. Shah Muhammad spreads his 400,000 soldiers thin across every city and fortress in his empire. That turns out to be the worst possible decision he could have made. The Mongols arrived in 1219. First thing people notice, they're fast. Like, unsettlingly fast. Mongol cavalry could cover 100 miles in a day. For context, a medieval European army moving with supply wagons, maybe 15 miles a day on a good day. How? They brought their food supply with them. Herds, mare's milk, dried meat, could last months on the move. Other armies needed supply trains, granaries, and logistics officers. Mongols just showed up. But speed is only useful if you know where you're going. And the Mongols already knew everything. Which cities had food, which roads to take, where the Shah's armies were positioned, which governors were competent, and which would fold immediately. Merchants had been mapping the empire for years. Every trade mission was also an intelligence-gathering operation. By the time the army arrived, they had better maps of Khwarezm than the Shah did. Then they did something nobody expected. They split up. Genghis Khan takes the main force toward Bukhara. His sons Chagatai and Ogadai go to Otrar, the city where this whole thing started. Yochi heads north. And 2 of his best generals, Jebe and Subutai, he sends west with one job, find the Shah and don't come back until he's dead. Now remember, the Shah had spread his forces across every garrison in the empire. So when 4 separate Mongol armies attack 4 different regions simultaneously, there's no way to coordinate a defense. The Shah can't move his armies to reinforce each other because he doesn't know which attack is the real one. Here is the secret. Turns out they're all the real ones. Bukhara falls in February 1220. The Mongols show up, offer surrender, and the city opens its gates. Genghis Khan walks into the main mosque, gets up where the imam usually stands, and allegedly says, "I am the punishment of God. If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me upon you." Whether he actually said that, or if it's just good propaganda, the city survives. Some looting, sure, but no massacre. The message goes out, surrender immediately, you live. Merv doesn't surrender. Merv at this point has maybe 700,000 people, huge city, strong walls. They figure they can hold out. The Mongols breach the walls and then systematically kill everyone. And I mean everyone. They made pyramids out of skulls afterward to make sure the next city got the message. It worked. When the Mongols show up at Nishapur, the gates open before they even ask. That's the machinery worked, that's how system designed. You don't have to massacre every city, you massacre one, and the next 10 surrender without a fight. It's not cruelty, it's efficiency. Well, it's both. Why waste time and troops on 10 sieges when you can do one really thorough massacre and make the other 9 submit? Meanwhile, Jebei and Subutai are hunting the Shah across the entire empire. And this is where you see how the Mongol communication system broke their enemies. The Shah is running city to city trying to rally his armies, but the Mongols have the YAM, postal relay stations every 25 miles, messages traveling 200 miles per day. The Shah is trying to coordinate a defense using runners on horses. By the time his message reaches one city, the Mongols have already moved 3 cities over. Jebei and Subutai chase him all the way to an island in the Caspian Sea, where he dies in December 1220. Pneumonia, probably. Or just the stress of watching his entire empire collapse in months. His son, Jalal ad-Din, tries to keep fighting. He's actually pretty good at it, and wins a battle at Parwan in 1221 where terrain stops the Mongol cavalry from doing their usual thing. But then his own troops get into a fight over loot from the battle, specifically over who gets to keep a white horse. Half his army deserts over this. Pretty ironic whole thing started with loot and ended with it too. Genghis Khan catches up with him at the Indus River in November 1221. Jalal ad-Din, seeing he's surrounded on 3 sides, allegedly spurs his horse into the river and jumps. The horse makes it across. Genghis Khan watches this happen and reportedly says, "A father with such a son should be happy." Then orders his men to kill everyone else, enslave the survivors, and move on. 18 months. That's how long it took to dismantle an empire the size of Western Europe. Samarkand, fallen. Bukhara, fallen. Merv, erased from the map. The Shah, dead. His heir, running for his life in India. The Mongol army at this point has barely taken casualties. The Mongol machine is optimized for conquering any territory it lays its eyes on. That's what the machine looked like at the beginning. A system that could move faster than news of its arrival, gather intelligence like a modern military, coordinate attacks across thousands of miles, and turn psychological warfare into an operational advantage. As this mass-carrying machine marched on when in August 1227, Genghis Khan dies during a campaign against Western Sia. He's 50-something years old, built an empire twice the size of Rome, and now he's gone. You'd think this would be the end. Most empires don't survive their founder. When Alexander the Great died, his empire split immediately. When Attila the Hun died, the Huns collapsed within a generation. The Mongol Empire kept going. Because here's the thing. Genghis didn't build a cult of personality. He built a system. The decimal military structure, the Yasa legal code, the YAM communication network, the meritocracy, the succession laws, all of it kept functioning. His third son, Ogadei, becomes Great Khan in 1229 after a 2-year regency. And the machine doesn't slow down, it accelerates. 1230 to 1234, they finished what Genghis started in China. The Jin dynasty, which had been fighting the Mongols since 1211, finally fell. Kaifeng, their capital, gets sieged, starved, and taken. Northern China is completely under Mongol control. Meanwhile, in Persia, they're hunting down the last Khwarezmian remnants and conquering Georgia, Armenia, Azerbaijan. By 1235, they've spent 16 years conquering, consolidating, and most importantly, learning. They were absorbing everything they conquered: knowledge, technology, people. Chinese siege engineers who understood mathematics and counterweights, Persian trebuchet designs, Cuman and Alan warriors now fighting under Mongol banners. Every empire they destroyed made the machine stronger. Everything was fed and absorbed in the machine. 1235. Ögedei holds a Kurultai, a council of Mongol chiefs. Decision: time to invade Europe. They spent 1236 and 1237 setting the stage, conquering Volga, Bulgaria, crushing the Cumans and Alans, and staging a massive army on the Russian border. And now they're about to hit a target that should stop them cold: Kievan Rus. That's early Russia, modern-day Russia, Ukraine, Belarus, Poland, and the Baltic states combined. Absolutely massive. Logically, this should be where the Mongol advance ends. It's not open steppe anymore. So all the Mongol usual tactics shouldn't have worked. It's dense forests where cavalry can't maneuver properly, major rivers that serve as natural barriers, brutal winters that have killed every invasion force in history. The Russes have fortified cities with walls, armies that have fought nomadic raiders for centuries, and a population in the millions spread across dozens of major cities. On paper, Kievan Rus's is unconquerable. The terrain is wrong, the defenses are strong, and the Mongols are about to face an environment that completely negates their cavalry advantage. Except the Mongols have spent 31 years collecting solutions to every problem. Chinese siege engineers who know how to crack fortified cities, Persian trebuchets that can knock down walls from 500 meters away, gunpowder bombs, psychological warfare perfected across 3 continents, the YAM system that lets them coordinate multiple armies across thousands of miles. And they've already tested winter warfare, already fought in forests, already adapted to every terrain type from deserts to mountains. Plus, Kievan Rus's has one fatal weakness. It's completely fragmented. Dozens of princes constantly fighting each other over territory and succession. No unified command, no coordinated defense. Each city is defending itself. The Mongols had even tested them before in 1223 at the Battle of Kalka River, crushed a combined Rus's army, then left. It was just reconnaissance. And what did the Rus's princes do for the next 14 years? Went back to fighting each other. Didn't prepare. Didn't unify. Didn't learn. December 1237. The Mongols cross the border. Ryazan, one of the major fortified cities, refuses to surrender. 5-day siege. The Mongols breach the walls using Chinese siege equipment, storm the city, and massacre everyone. The speed is terrifying. Vladimir fell in February 1238, then Kozelsk, Moscow, one after another. By 1240, Kiev, the jewel of Rus's, the cultural heart, was completely destroyed. When European envoys arrive years later, they report finding fields covered in bones and skulls as far as they can see. Russia should have been where the Mongol advance stopped. Instead, it became another data set. 1240. The Mongols finish conquering Russia. European kingdoms get warnings. Strange horsemen from the east destroyed everything. Surely they'll stop at the forests. They don't stop. 3 Mongol armies crossed into Europe in 1241. The northern force heads to Poland under Baidar and Kadan. The southern force heads to Hungary, the main force under Batu and Subutai. The reserve force stays ready to support whoever needs it. This is coordinated across hundreds of miles. And this is a diversion force. The main army is preparing for China. April 9th, 1241. Duke Henry II of Silesia gathers Europe's elite. Polish knights, Teutonic Knights, Templars, Hospitallers, 25 to 30,000 men. These are Europe's best. One problem, though. King Wenceslas of Bohemia is 1 day away with 50,000 more troops. If Henry waits, the Mongols face a combined force of 75,000 plus. The Mongol force numbers somewhere between 8 and 25,000. Sources differ. They need to win before Wenceslas arrives. Morning. Mongol cavalry appears. Polish cavalry charges. This is what they do. This is how they fight. The Mongols run. The Polish cavalry thinks they're fleeing and chases them. Gets separated from the infantry. Their horses are exhausted from the chase. The Mongol cavalry has fresh horses in reserve. They flank from both sides. They use smoke screens to hide the movement. By the time the Polish see the trap, they're in it. Slaughter. Duke Henry is killed, beheaded. 30,000 Europeans dead. The battle lasted hours. Why did it work? Think of it like this. European knights trained their entire lives to fight one way. You form up in heavy armor, you charge in a line, you crash into the enemy line, and whoever's stronger wins. It's like a football play where both teams know exactly what the other is going to do, and it comes down to who executes better. Honor, courage, strength. That's the game. The Mongols didn't play that game. European knight charges at Mongol cavalry. The Mongols turn around and run. The knight thinks, "I'm winning," and chases them. His horse gets tired. He gets separated from his formation. Then the Mongols who were running away turn around with fresh horses, and 50 more Mongol riders appear from both sides. The knight is surrounded, exhausted, and dead. It's a trap. It was always a trap. Europeans considered this dishonorable. Mongols considered this Tuesday. Here's the bigger problem. Once a European battle starts, it's chaos. Knights are in heavy armor, can't see much, can't hear much, and commanders have no way to tell them to change the plan. A knight charges, and that's it. He's committed. If the situation changes, if it's a trap, if he needs to fall back, too bad. He's in the middle of it, and there's no way to communicate. The Mongols used drums and signal flags. They could send orders during the battle. Group A, fake retreat to the left. Group B, circle around to their rear. Group C, wait for my signal, then charge. And they'd execute it in real time while the fighting was happening. European commanders would watch their own army and have no way to control it once the fighting started. Mongol commanders were conducting an orchestra, while Europeans locked into one plan at the start of battle and couldn't change it. Mongols adapted in real time based on what was working. 2 days later, 200 miles south, Battle of Mohi in Hungary. 60,000 Hungarian troops. Same result. Destroyed. Mongols feign retreat. Hungarians chase. Trap closes. King Bela IV barely escapes. And now Vienna is next. There's nothing between the Mongols and Western Europe. No major armies left. No fortifications that could stop them. The forests and terrain that should have slowed them down haven't mattered. They've adapted to everything. Think about what's about to happen. The Mongols are on the doorstep of Western Europe. France, the Holy Roman Empire, Italy, all of it is wide open. And unlike Eastern Europe, Western Europe is where the wealth is. The universities, the cathedrals, the trade centers, the cultural heart of medieval Christendom. If the Mongols take Western Europe, there's no Renaissance, no Enlightenment. The entire trajectory of Western civilization potentially doesn't exist. December 11th, 1241. Ogedei Khan died in Mongolia. Genghis Khan's law says when the Khan dies, all the royal family must return to Mongolia to elect the next one. This isn't optional. Batu Khan, leading the European invasion, gets the news. He's winning. Vienna is right there. Western Europe is his for the taking. He says, "We're winning." Subutai, the old general who's been crushing armies for 30 years, says, "Doesn't matter, law is law." They turn around. The entire Mongol army, on the verge of conquering Western Europe, just leaves. The system that made them unstoppable, absolute loyalty to Mongol law, just saved Europe. The same mechanism that conquered half the world is now the thing that stops them. If Ogadai doesn't die in December 1241, there's a very real possibility Western Europe falls. And if Western Europe falls, the world you know doesn't exist. But the machine keeps running, and for the next 18 years it keeps conquering. 1242 to 1258. The Mongols are everywhere. They're finishing off resistance in Russia and Eastern Europe. They're consolidating Persia. They're attacking Korea. The Yam system now stretches from Korea to Hungary. Messages can travel from one end of the empire to the other in weeks. And they're still absorbing. Chinese administrators helped run the empire. Persian scholars advising on governance. Muslim engineers building siege equipment. The machine is pulling in expertise from everywhere. 1258. Hulagu Khan, one of Genghis Khan's grandsons, conquers Baghdad. This isn't just another city. Baghdad is the capital of the Abbasid Caliphate, the center of the Islamic world for 500 years. The libraries get burned. The caliph gets executed. 200,000 people died. Why does this matter? Because another of Genghis Khan's grandsons, Berka Khan, who runs the Golden Horde in Russia, converted to Islam in 1252. When he hears his cousin just slaughtered the caliph and destroyed Baghdad, he's furious. But it's not really about religion. It's about trade wealth, territorial disputes, and economic control. Religion gave Berke the excuse. Economics gave him the reason. In 1259. Mongol Khan, another grandson of Genghis Khan, who's been ruling the empire since 1251, dies while campaigning in China. This is where the machine starts breaking. Genghis Khan's succession system was designed for 4 sons. Now there are dozens of grandsons scattered across 12 million square miles, and multiple people want to be Great Khan. The law says all royal families return to Mongolia to elect the next Khan, but getting everyone there takes months. And traveling wasn't an issue as much as each grandson is now starting to claim the throne without holding the entire members together, which again was a crucial part in the Mongol machine to run it smoothly. Every Mongol had a clear picture of rulers and kingdoms this way. I mean, Europe survived because of this sole reason, and now they are just throwing it out of the window. And here is how it played out. At 1260, Kublai Khan, who's in China, declares himself Great Khan. Arik Boke, who's actually in Mongolia, also declares himself Great Khan. Both have legitimate claims. Both have armies. For the first time in Mongol history, Mongol armies fight each other. The civil war lasts 4 years. Kublai wins in 1264 because he controls China, which means he controls the food supply. Arik Boka surrenders and dies mysteriously shortly after. And while this is happening, another civil war starts. 1262. Berka Khan in Russia and Hulagu Khan in Persia go to war. Mongol cousins fighting each other. Berka even allied with the Mamluks in Egypt, and they were the Mongols' enemies just to fight Hulagu. In 1263, Battle of Terek River. Berka's forces defeat Hulagu's forces. First time a Mongol army has retreated in a generation. Both Berka and Hulagu die by 1265, but the damage is done. Mongol can kill Mongol now. The sacred law given by Genghis Khan had no meaning now. Meanwhile, there's still a war in China that's been dragging on for decades. At 1235, the Mongols invade Song China. Khwarezm took 18 months. Russia took 3 years. Song China takes 45 years. Why? Walls everywhere. Every city was fortified. You can't gallop through brick. Fast forward to 1268. The Mongols besiege Xiangyang and Fancheng, twin cities controlling access to the heart of Song territory. Year 1, stalemate. Year 2, stalemate. Year 3, stalemate. The machine is supposed to show up, crush resistance, move on. A 5-year siege means something is broken. Finally, 4 years later, in 1272, Kublai Khan writes to his cousin in Persia, "Send me your engineers, the ones who took Baghdad." He gets Persian engineers who know how to build counterweight trebuchets. The old Mongol trebuchets need 200 men pulling ropes. The Persian ones are mechanical. 5 times the range, 6 times the firepower. March 1273. The weapons get built. 5-year siege broken in weeks. This shows the machine still works. A problem they can't solve? Import the solution from 5,000 miles away. But notice something. This took 5 years. The Mongols are slowing down. And there's a reason. Kublai is becoming Chinese. He built Beijing as his capital, adopted Chinese bureaucracy, Chinese court rituals, calls himself emperor, not Khan, founded the Yuan dynasty in 1271. This isn't Mongols ruling China anymore. It's a Chinese dynasty founded by Mongols. Remember what we said at the beginning. Why the machine worked so well. The Mongols absorbed everything they conquered. Knowledge, technology, people. Every empire they destroyed made the machine stronger. But now they're absorbing too much. They're not just taking Chinese engineers, they're becoming Chinese. The same people who abandoned their tribal identity and structured themselves in tens, 100 formations under a Mongol banner are now ditching Mongol identity altogether. The Ilkhanate in Persia is becoming Persian. The Golden Horde converted to Islam. The Chagatai Khanate is fighting a civil war between Muslim converts and traditional Mongols. Everything is fracturing bit by bit. The Mongol machine identity is now getting taken over by the same system they were absorbing just a few years back. Different languages, different religions, different cultures. They're not Mongol anymore. 1279. Song China finally falls. It took 45 years. By the 1280, look at what's left to conquer. China, taken. Persia, taken. Russia, taken. In Europe, they left in 1241. India, the Delhi Sultanate fought them off. Japan tried twice in 1274 and 1281. Typhoons destroyed both invasion fleets. Southeast Asia, the Jungles defeated them. Between civil wars and losing Mongol identity, one major problem started to take shape. Which machine was built for expansion? The machine was only optimized for conquering. Loot for soldiers, land for sons, glory for leaders. When there's no external enemy, they turn on each other. 1294. Kublai Khan dies. The empire has already fractured into 4 separate khanates. Yuan dynasty in China, Ilkhanate in Persia, Golden Horde in Russia, Chagatai in Central Asia. They technically acknowledge the Yuan as supreme, but in practice they're independent empires. 1295. The Ilkhanate officially converts to Islam, not pretending to be Mongol anymore. Persian Muslim dynasty now. And here's the key thing. The machine is already broken by this point. Civil wars every time a Khan dies. Different Khanates with different religions, different languages, different interests. The unified Mongol identity that Genghis created is gone. Fast forward to 1335. The Ilkhanate's last Khan, Abu Sa'id, dies without an heir. Immediate civil war. Within 20 years, the Ilkhanate completely fragments into smaller dynasties. First Khanate to fall. And remember, this happens before the plague even starts. It shows the Mongol machine is already getting weakened. Late 1330s. Issyk-Kul region in Kyrgyzstan. Cemetery inscriptions from 1338 and 1339 say, died of plague. Ground zero for the Black Death. The bacterium, Yersinia pestis, lives in rodents. Carried by fleas. Climate shifts cause rodent populations to crash. Fleas need new hosts. They find them on trade caravans. And remember the Mongol advantage? The Yam system, the trade routes, the connected empire, messages traveling hundreds of miles per day, merchants moving freely from China to Europe, the Pax Mongolica. That network is now a disease highway, a super-fast network for plague. 1346. The Golden Horde is besieging Kaffa, a trading port in Crimea. Plague breaks out in the Mongol camp, soldiers dying. The story goes they catapult infected corpses over the walls. Whether that's exactly what happened, historians debate. But plague definitely gets into Kaffa. October 1347, ships leave Kaffa for Sicily. The crew is dead or dying by the time they arrive. Rats on board were infected. The Black Death enters Europe. 13/4, 7 to 1353. In Europe, 30 to 60% of the population died. About 25 million people. But here's what happened in the Mongol Empire. Golden Horde. Urban centers collapse. Sarai, the capital, population crashes. Trade network shut down. Political structure fractures. 1359, the Golden Horde enters what's called the Great Troubles. 25 different Khans rule in 20 years. All of them were killed in battle or assassinated. The Khanate fragments. The Ilkhanate successor states already collapsed in 1335, but the regions get hit hard by plague. Tabriz, a major trading hub, had 250,000 people in the 1330s. By the 1350s, it's nearly a ghost town. Yuan dynasty in China. Northern China is devastated, combined with floods, rebellions, famine. At 1368, the Mongols got expelled entirely. The Ming dynasty took over. Mongols flee back to Mongolia. Chagatai Khanate. Already fragmenting before plague. Plague accelerates it. By the 1370s, broken into small warring khanates. Here's what you need to understand. The Mongol Empire was already dying before the plague arrived. The Ilkhanate had already collapsed 12 years before the first plague reports. The Khanates were already fighting each other. They'd already stopped being Mongol and become Chinese, Persian, Muslim. The succession system couldn't handle dozens of claimants. The expansion machine had run out of places to expand. The plague didn't break the Mongol Empire. The plague hit an empire that had already broken itself. They created the most extensive trade network in human history. Safe roads, fast communication, stable currency made them rich. That same network spread plague faster than any disease in history, connected dying regions to healthy regions, prevented isolation, prevented quarantine. Everyone got hit simultaneously. Everyone goes down together. By 1400, Yuan dynasty fled to Mongolia, much weaker. Ilkhanate gone. Golden Horde fragmenting. Chagatai fragmented. By 1500, Mongol Empire didn't exist anymore. 54 years to build it. 90 years at the top. 60 years to completely collapse. Why? Not because they got soft. Not because they lost in battle. Not because of the plague. Because the succession system couldn't scale. 4 sons, works, dozens of grandsons, civil war every generation. Because cultural absorption went too far. Taking Chinese engineers made them stronger. Becoming Chinese made them stop being Mongol. Because the system needed conquest to function. No conquest, no loot, no land for sons, the machine turns on itself. Because there was no institutional stability beyond personal loyalty to the Khan. When Khans fought each other, nothing held it together. The plague just finished what they'd already started. It accelerated the collapse, but the collapse was already happening. Everything that made them unstoppable killed them. They optimized for conquest. And when you optimize for one thing, you become fragile to everything else. The machine was perfect for what it was built for. It just couldn't be anything else. In the end, the machine ate itself alive. The legacy. Trade routes permanently connected east and west. Technology spreads faster. Gunpowder, printing, the compass, genetic legacy across Eurasia, psychological impact. The Mongols remained a trauma for centuries. Descendants. Timur built an empire claiming Mongol descent. The Mughals ruled India for 3 centuries. Russian identity shaped by the Golden Horde. The Yuan dynasty became part of Chinese history. Back where they started. Felt tense, horses, grasslands. The empire is gone. But for 100 years, they made the world tremble.